Hadouken!
What's good, fam? It's your man VGPunk here, and welcome to the first actual video on my channel. As a way for y'all to get to know me and learn sort of what I'm all about, I figured it was only appropriate for me to do a top 10 list of my personal favorite video games of all time. Some of these games and franchises will likely be getting even deeper looks in the form of long-form content in the future. Be advised that this is just a personal top 10 list. We all have one. I am by no means saying that these are the 10 best games ever. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and without further ado, here are my top 10 favorite video games of all time. Number 10, The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim. Y'all have no idea how difficult it was to come up with a top 10 list of favorite video games. I was very, very close to leaving this game off the list. However, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I cannot deny the amount of time I've spent exploring this world, and the sheer joy I get even to this day from exploring it. My introduction to this franchise was when I received The Elder Scrolls III Morrowind as a gift to Christmas after its release when I was in 8th grade. Yes, I am that old. At the time, I could not believe that a game could possibly be that big. Fast forward 9 years later, and I find myself experiencing those same emotions of absolute wonder when Skyrim releases just days after my birthday in 2011. I was torn between whether to give Morrowind or Skyrim the number 10 spot, but in the end I had to go with Skyrim purely because of the time and money I voluntarily devoted to this game. I bought the game on PS3 at launch, then I bought it on PS4, then bought it on Switch, then sold my PS4 copy, wanted it again, and bought it on PS4 again. Yes, I am 100% aware that I am a sucker. As perplexing as some of Bethesda's business decisions have been to me as of late, I cannot ignore the important place their games have had in my life. Number 9, Detroit Become Human. Quantic Dream in general, and David Cage in particular, is a very polarizing figure in the video game industry. You either love their games and their method of storytelling, or you absolutely hate them. If you've ever played one of their offerings, one thing is for certain, you are anything but indifferent. Luckily for Quantic Dream and Mr. Cage, I fall into the love side of the aisle. 2010's Heavy Rain almost made the list in its place, but I have to give the nod to their 2018 magnum opus, Detroit Become Human. The magnitude of the game's scope, the compelling protagonist, and the gorgeous presentation tipped this game over the edge for me. I am a big fan of gaming moments, and Detroit absolutely specializes in that regard. From Marcus crawling his way out of a junkyard and reassembling himself following an attempt on his life, to Connor chasing a target through an industrial landscape, Detroit Become Human has set pieces that will stick with you if you are able to vibe with the Quantic Dream method of storytelling. It is absolutely not for everyone, but you'll find something special if it happens to be for you. Number 8, Resident Evil 7. This entry might come as a bit of a surprise to those of you who are more partial to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th installments in the franchise, but I fell head over heels in love with Resident Evil 7 from the time the game was first revealed and I dove into that incredible demo. Resident Evil 7 marked something of a rebirth in the franchise. After a disappointing reception to the 6th game in the series, Resident Evil 7 came with sweeping changes to the gameplay, storytelling, and overall presentation. Adopting a first-person perspective, a new protagonist, a new setting and enemies, as well as a return to darker aesthetics and pacing, Resident Evil 7 was scarier than the franchise had been in well over a decade. I'm generally not one to get scared when playing a video game, but even I feel my anxiety shoot through the roof when being chased through the house by Jack Baker early in the game. He's just so fast and so scary. Number 7, Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is my absolute favorite game in the franchise. I've played through this game more times than I feel comfortable admitting, and every time it is a joy to experience. I actually didn't hate the 3rd entry as much as a lot of people apparently did, but it was wonderful to get a take on the nearly first-person adventure from a team of people that worked on the isometric originals, bringing with them a lot of that old-school aesthetic. The real star here is the characters and the voice acting. Benny, voiced by Matthew Perry, is a very hard character to hate. His "the game was rigged from the start" line is one of the greatest opening lines for a video game of all time and makes it feel like an epic film is about to begin. Not to mention Mr. House, voiced by the late Rene Auberjonois, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, of Star Trek Deep Space Nine fame, my favorite TV show by the way. Mr. House just oozes smug superiority, making it all the more satisfying if you choose to absolutely dismantle his plans. Number 6, Tekken 3. I love Tekken 3. Tekken 2 was my proper introduction to the franchise, so when Tekken 3 was announced, I waited for that installment with bated breath. The internet was still in its infancy where gaming was concerned, and my father and I would try to find any details we could about the gameplay, characters, and story. It was the first time in my life that I was eagerly anticipating an arcade release, and when it released, boy was it an event to witness. It was so hard to get time on the machine, and when you finally got your turn, you had better be good, or it was right back to the end of the line. I remember my brother, who was much better at Tekken 2 than I was, playing Tekken 3 for the first time and whooping some stranger absolutely senseless with Eddie Gordo. Then it was my turn and he did the same thing to my Jin Kazama. One of my favorite memories with this game doesn't even come from playing it. It was the summer after the arcade release and Tekken 3 had just been released for the PlayStation a few months prior. My dad came home during lunch with burgers for me and my brother, and in the bag was Tekken 3. He surprised us with the game, and it was the only thing my brother and I played for literal months. The games that followed may have had better and more intricate gameplay mechanics, but it's moments like these that guarantee that Tekken 3 will always have a special place in my heart. Number 5. Pokemon Red and Blue. Pokemon Red and Blue, Red and Green in Japan, was one of my introductions to JRPGs as a child, which is very weird to say. I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat, and probably never really thought of it that way, but Pokemon Red and Blue was very much a JRPG. That and Final Fantasy VII, we'll get to that, are very much responsible for my love of the genre that permeates to this day. I was positively obsessed with Pokemon as a child, and I'm sure a lot of people my age can relate to that. It was a magical time to be a kid. The game was incredible, the show was in full swing, and people were starting literal fights on the elementary school playground over the trading card game. I've played most of the mainline Pokemon games that followed, but no experience quite compares to being 10 years old and not knowing what I was going to find as I traversed the fields and the caves, having the original 151 Pokemon still be a mystery, and the sense of pride and accomplishment, lols, that came with every gym badge I earned. My first Pokemon ever was Squirtle, and since then I have picked the water starter in every single game since. Which starter do you typically go with? Let me know in the comments below. Number 4, Wing Commander 4, The Price of Freedom. Something you folks need to understand about me. I am a huge science fiction nerd. Space sims were a big part of my life growing up, from Free Space to Wing Commander spin-off Privateer. But nothing matches with my love of the Wing Commander series proper. This section easily could have gone to Wing Commander 3, but I'm giving the 4th entry the nod due to the wonderful storytelling, the cast of characters, and the excellently active full-motion videos featuring Mark Hamill, yes, that Mark Hamill, as player character Colonel Christopher Blair, and Tom Wilson, yes, that Tom Wilson, as Maniac. The star-studded cast didn't stop there, and even to this day I annoy my fiance when we are watching a movie and I'll randomly exclaim, "That person was in Wing Commander!" The story was an excellent break from the usual narrative. Having spent the first 3 games at war with the cat-like alien race, the Kilrathi, picture Star Trek's Klingons, but if they were cats. You were now fighting human enemies and dealing with the possibility of a civil war erupting, and it was your job to stop it. The final battle being fought with words as opposed to lasers against Admiral Jeffrey Tolan, played by Malcolm McDowell, yes, that Malcolm McDowell, was just icing on an already deliciously explosive cake. Number 3, the Street Fighter franchise. Okay, I know I'm cheating here, but it is so hard for me to pick just one Street Fighter game. The series in general is to be praised for what it did for arcade culture, gaming culture in general, and for essentially spawning the entire competitive fighting game community. There are several compelling documentaries on the fighting game community just on Street Fighter alone, and I have many fond memories with this franchise. From getting absolutely destroyed by my cousins on Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which prompted me to get better, to playing Street Fighter Alpha 2 in the arcades and picking Dan prior to my knowledge that he was intended to be the worst character in the game and winning with him, to sinking quarter after quarter into the Street Fighter 3 Third Strike machine. This franchise has a stranglehold on my heart from both a gameplay and lore perspective. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I watched the Street Fighter 2 animated movie as a kid, and how I talked my dad into renting the absolutely horrendous live-action movie that I refused to admit was actually bad at the time. I suppose if I were pressed at gunpoint to select one game from the series, I'd have to give this spot to Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, for being the most complete and functional version of the landmark entry that properly set the stage for everything that followed, spawned endless imitators, and gave birth to the competitive fighting game community. Number 2, Final Fantasy VII. You knew this was coming when I mentioned it in the Pokemon entry, but Final Fantasy VII completely blew my mind when it came out when I was a child. It was a far more sophisticated adventure than I was used to at the time, and it really jump-started my love of the JRPG genre. Final Fantasy VII sparked a cultural revolution in gaming, so much so that a lot of extra content was generated just based around this game alone, which had been unheard of in the series before then. 3 side games, 2 films, and 1 stellar remake later, Final Fantasy VII is currently experiencing a renaissance of relevancy not many franchises are lucky to have. There is so much to love about this game. The iconic characters, the classic music, the triumphs, the failures, the greatest villain maybe of all time. All of it wraps into an incredible package that serves to make one more curious about the world in which it takes place long after they've completed the initial story. Now that the remake series is providing an interesting new take on that world, I hope that the players who are new to Final Fantasy VII get to experience the same indescribable feelings that I did when I was a child. Number 1. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Metal Gear is my favorite gaming franchise, and Hideo Kojima is my favorite storyteller of all time. I love every game in the series, and can remember being mesmerized when I played the first Metal Gear Solid on PlayStation and first explored the snowy landscape of Shadow Moses Island. However, nothing compares to my experience when I first played Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Rewinding the narrative back to 1964, this game sees you take control of Naked Snake, experiencing his journey to becoming Big Boss, the terrorist leader from the original Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Hideo Kojima and Yoji Shinkawa completely outdid themselves with the characters this time around. From seeing a young and cocky Ocelot, to the unconventional boss fights with the End and the Sorrow, to the heartbreaking final confrontation with Snake's mentor, the boss, in a field of gorgeous flowers, Snake Eater was a sight to behold and an absolute treat for fans of the franchise at the time to explore the genesis of the world we've come to know and love. And there y'all have it. Thank you for tuning in. What are your favorite games? What do you have the most fond memories of? Please let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can expect a lot more of this type of content from me in the days ahead. Until next time, I have been #VGPunk, and I will see you in the mosh pit.